friend Lyndall, she was saying, please, Nina, share some practices or yoga practices for the mature body, stretch practices for the mature body. So that is what we are looking at today. What I'm going to do for you is I'm going to give you 3 tips, because there are so many exercises out there. There's so many fantastic teachers. They're on this whole channel. I think I have over 60 yoga classes, and they're all geared to gentle, general hatha yoga classes. There's nothing for advanced students. In my channel, it really is, the yoga is accessible for anyone, anytime. You just pop in the search what you're looking for, and I promise you there's something that you want to find. But I do want to share with you 3 key aspects, 3 key elements that I think are really important. I just made my notes up here for me before jumping on this call. And the first one is, when it comes to stretch exercises, calm down, Nina, breathe slowly. You've got time. You can see, I need to tell myself, educate myself as I go on these, so that I don't kind of like spiral out of complete control. So the number 1 thing when it comes to stretch exercises for the mature body is you need to be mindful of your spine. We actually all need to be mindful of our spine, no matter what age we're at, what our body is like. We can have a mature body, at the age of 50, at the age of 90, at the age of 20 even, depending on how we've been looking after it. And we can have a very youthful body at the age of 90, at the age of 50, at the age of 20. It just depends on how you have been taking care of yourself, and that is key. But back to the first one, your spine. Your spine is the central column pretty much in your body, and everything operates from there. And if your spine is not healthy, if your spine is degenerating, if your spine has issues, it is going to impact your whole being. And so when you do any exercise, when you do any practices, you always want to think of spinal integrity. So if you're doing your cat stretch, if you're doing your triangle in yoga, if you're just doing a squat, if you are sitting on the couch or sitting here like me, I definitely do not have spinal integrity now, so I am not a good example of this. But you want to just make sure that you are keeping your spine in a nice neutral position, and that you are not putting any unnecessary pressure on your spine in any which way, shape, way, or form. You also want to make sure that you are warming up your spine before you do any practices. So before you go into, say, a strong back bend like a warrior one in yoga, you actually want to make sure that you have warmed up your spine. And we warm up the spine going forwards, and we warm up the spine going backwards. And if you think of like a cat stretch, or even just sitting and doing this kind of movement, that is warming up your spine forwards and backwards. So that is one way that you work with your spine. The other way is that from side to side. So you really want to be doing lateral stretches, where you slowly start warming up the spine from side to side. And then the third one is that you really want to do gentle rotations with your spine. So before you go into any yoga postures, anything that is going to require you to go into, I don't want to say strenuous, but maybe like a little more deeper than you would, you really want to make sure that you've warmed up your spine going forwards and back, that you've warmed it up going laterally, and that you've also included some rotation in it. So when you're looking at exercises, practices for the mature body, and kind of like bringing suppleness, you really want to ensure that you are taking time to warm up your spine. So that is my key takeaway, number 1. What else do I have in here? Number 2 is that you want to be doing functional movements. So those kind of practices and movements that you need in your everyday life. So practices for the mature body. I absolutely love crawling. I mean, it sounds crazy, but it is probably one of the best practices that you can do, because not only is it great for your body-mind coordination, your right-left brain thingy coordination, it really helps to bring a little bit more strength to your upper body as well. So you want to get down onto the ground, you want to be crawling, and there's so many different ways of crawling. You can literally Google it or pop it in YouTube, like crawling options. I think there actually even a whole load in this Uninflamed book as well, and I'll see if I kind of like run into them while we're chatting. But what you want to be doing is you can be crawling kind of like on hands and knees. Here we go. Have a look at that in Kate's book on Uninflamed. It's great. So you've got a whole load of different options of crawling. There is the baby crawl, you've got the bear crawl, you've got the alligator crawl, you've got the tabletop crawl, gorilla crawl, inchworm crawl. There's so many different ways of crawling, and crawling is probably one of the best ways that you can do. I'll actually just read while we're here a little. She says crawl. Rocking, rolling and crawling were your first functional movements. See, functional movements. When you lose these movements, you lose the neural pathways that enable stability and creative movement adaptation. So get back on the floor and roll around, rock up to sitting or crawling if you can. Older adults often become afraid of falling. They not only fear the crash, but fear they might not be able to get back up again. Whatever your age, you can ward off this fear and keep your youth by getting on and off the earth daily through crawling. Get on down to get on up. Do it regularly and you'll never lose your relationship with the ground. So that comes from my coach, Kate Stillman, her book Uninflamed. And that is my second tip for you, is crawling. I've been doing this most mornings as like my warm up, and it is fantastic. It really is such a great practice. And as you age, as our body gets more mature, crawling, a functional movement of just crawling, is helpful, really, really helpful. So that is my second tip for you. The first one, make sure you're warming up your spine. The second one is functional movement, and a practice like crawling is fantastic. And the third one that I have here for actually all of us, but especially the mature body, if you're really struggling maybe with a little bit of suppleness, that's the word, Nina, is this idea of hydration. So as we reach about 50, we move into the Vata stage of our lives. And so for those of you who've been following me know that I absolutely love Ayurveda. I love the practice. It is one of the things that I coach. And Vata is air and ether. It's those two elements together. And no matter what our dosha is, as we move towards 50, we move into the Vata time of our life. And if you think of air and ether, and it's windy outside, but air is very, very drying. So naturally, as we hit that stage, especially kind of like as menopause kicks in for women, perimenopause, menopause, there is this drying up of our bodies that naturally happens. It just occurs. And so we really want to make sure that we still stay nicely hydrated and oleated as we move through those phases. So hydration, and I did a little video on hydration earlier this week, is really simple. It's not about gulping down a whole load of water once or twice through the day to get your 2 liters in. It's literally taking a sip of water, warm water, or if it's hot out there, kind of like room temperature water, but the warmer the water, the better. And you do that every 20 minutes. So from like the morning, I'd say till maybe about 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening, because otherwise you're going to be on the loo all night long and you really don't want to be getting up, and that's not the point. But till about like 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you want to try and sip hot water every 20 minutes, because that is going to get deep cellular hydration for you. And so, yeah, Lyndall, those are my 3 tips for you. It's gone a little longer than I anticipated, but you really want to, number one, think of spinal integrity and how your spine moves. You want to keep and warm that up before you do any movements. The second one is functional movement. You always want to think of functional movements. Like, is this movement something that I'm functionally needing in my day-to-day life? Like squatting down to get down to those bottom kitchen cupboards, reaching up, and like hanging from a bar. Like, these are all functional movements that our body needs. And crawling on the ground is a great way to start working with that. And then the third tip is hydration. So maybe not quite a yoga stretch exercises, but there are plenty on this YouTube channel that you can explore and delve into. Most of them are about an hour long, but just skip forward about 10 minutes into it after kind of like my intro, and just do the first 10 minutes. You don't have to do the whole class. Just do the first couple of minutes, the first couple of stretches mindfully, and that'll be super helpful. Before you know it, you'll probably end up doing like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just because you're not on your phone scrolling or doing things. You're actually just being present and mindful. And what you'll find is that as you get on the mat, you start to create more space and time in your everyday. So guys, it has been a blast sharing this with you. If you have any more questions, if you have any more comments, if there's something you'd like me to cover in the future, pop that in one of the comments below and I'll be sure to cover that. Otherwise, see you tomorrow for the next update. Sending you so much love. Bye.